Hello, everybody, and welcome to This Time Will Be Different. I'm your host, Reza Joffrey, and with me today is Dimitri, also known as BackTheBunny on Twitter. Dimitri, how are you doing today?
Great, man. Really happy to be here and happy you reached out.
Anytime, man. I've been admiring your Twitter threads for a while. You got some good stuff on there.
Yeah, I appreciate that, yeah.
For anyone who may not be familiar with you, how would you introduce yourself?
I work in the DeFi space for a project called RabbitX. We're a perp stacks on Starknet. I am, I guess, a hyper generalist, I suppose I would say. And it's kind of a common term, but my background's pretty broad. I worked in TradFi for a while. Did some published writing for a bit, economic writing and some political writing, and worked in fintech and some startup B2B sales. And I know pretty like the content of like the threads I like that what I read about and kind of what you see is a good proxy for, I guess, how sort of broad I am in a way. Mile wide and like an inch deep, maybe 2 inches deep on some things. So I don't know, curious guy. I love DeFi. I love this space. I believe in it very genuinely. And I hope that shines through in like how I communicate about it.
It definitely does. You're definitely, I like reading opinions that seem genuine, and you definitely come across as very genuine. and I feel like when people talk about DeFi and it comes off as a little more, I don't want to say aggressive, but it is kind of almost aggressive, the way that you kind of like discuss certain things.
Yeah.
And it always comes off as more authentic and honest for me, because you could tell someone cares if they're like really getting into it. Like when I'm reading your threads, I feel like I can tell that you're like, if you were talking out loud, you would be like waving your hands in the air.
Like, it's funny. I gesticulate a lot too, so that's really funny that gestures would come through like that verbally.
That's awesome. So, how did you discover crypto, or how did you fall down this rabbit hole and end up at RabbitX?
Yeah. I've been like aware of it. I knew about like Bitcoin when it was like $30 or so. I had a roommate who was very much into it. I accepted some utility payments in Doge like 2 months after it came out. I think that was like November 2013, 2014. So, but I didn't like, I thought they were just, and I actually did a thread on this. I thought they were just cryptocurrencies. I think that term is particularly harmful because I think it's misleading about what this space is and what it's like developing. And for, that's not to say I've been in crypto since 2014 or something. I think that's wrong because I was just aware of them, but I just thought they're tokens bouncing around. And then, like late 2020, frankly, early 2021, I encountered a company got deplatformed from AWS, a cloud service provider. And then I saw someone mention just on the timeline, and I was mostly in like financial Twitter. I wasn't like in crypto Twitter. I just came across someone mentioning how Filecoin fixes this. And I was like, how does a crypto fix cloud computing? Like, how does a cryptocurrency fix cloud computing? Because again, I had that misnomer currency in there. I looked into it and I was realizing, wow, this is like infrastructure. Holy shit. Like this is facilitating a whole new business paradigm. I was like, what else is going on here? And then I learned what like smart contracts and ETH were and all that. And then I was just completely red-pilled and scales fell from my eyes and been all self-educated and down the rabbit hole, so to speak, ever since. So yeah, a bit of a journey. But when I was really learned the kind of infrastructure being built here and what it circumvented and how it kind of aligned with me politically, it just brought about the interest. And I came and found Rabbit after that.
Yeah, I feel similarly. I was interested in Bitcoin, like when I'd heard about it in the early days, when people were using it on Silk Road and stuff, but I was interested in it and I understood the value, but I didn't personally fall down the rabbit hole until I started learning about ETH. I don't think I understood it when I read the white paper, but what I thought I understood, I thought was like brilliant. At the time, I thought it was just going to be like, I essentially thought of it as like decentralized internet, which isn't exactly the case, but it really just drew me in.
Me being more like minded towards productive assets. Like I'm not a gold guy. I'm not kind of like the Warren Buffett mentality. Like he wants, he'd rather own farmland. Like I was more of a tech stock investor because I could understand, listen, that these things provide real services. People use them. It makes sense why value accrues to this equities, these things. And like, I didn't see that initially with this space until I saw the services. And then I was really like, whoa, wait, this can be analyzed from a technological investment lens. Like this is serious and it completely aligns with me ideologically and has, all these benefits economically. But that was the real thing for me when I could see like the value add and why the tokens and things should have some intrinsic value to them too.
So if you don't like the term cryptocurrency, is there a term that you think would be better suited? Or how do you think we should talk about what it is exactly we're doing over here on the internet?
Yeah, it's more so like not saying it, rather you should say something else. Like digital asset is fine, crypto is fine, crypto token even. I don't think token is actually particularly good. To me, that's just a word for digital currency. But I'm not like too captious on what language you should use. Like I just think that one in particular, calling it a currency and the misnomer with that, because I think it's easier to enumerate what is trying to be a currency than what isn't. Like XRP, Litecoin, Bitcoin, Doge, right? These are things that just are meant to like remit transactions to like buy stuff or something. And everything else is just not. Like, where's RBX? Our token certainly is not trying to be. ETH isn't trying to be that. Like, nothing is trying to just be like a currency in the way that any normie or just normal person would conceptualize that term. So I think it's more avoiding that than what you should say. So anything else, frankly, is good to me.
Yeah, it's words are powerful. You know, it's I think that's a big problem we have in this industry in general is we kind of just like adopt these terms and use them without really thinking about it. Even like wallet isn't exactly a fantastic term for what the wallet is.
Yeah,
we have some work to do.
Yeah, we're borrowing from like old economy parlance and framing, which I get, but maybe we should invent some of our own stuff. Doing that might be harder to adopt people into the space because people like familiarity. So like, I'm not saying we need to reinvent like the lexicon. Being delicate about how you portray something, because God knows legacy media is doing us no favors, right? Like, so be cognizant of, I think, how we present this and communicate it. And currency to me just is something that a normal people, like a regular person thinks like, I don't know why this is valuable. Like, it just lets me send money. The state's version is more secure or whatever. I just think it's hard for them to see like the utility being built here with that word. Because most people I talk to too, like they just think your token's bouncing around. Kind of like I did too for a bit. They don't understand. They just think you're playing games, swapping puppy coin for Pepe coin for whatever Ponzi stuff. They don't think about infrastructure.
I do feel a little torn on all the like puppy coin, Pepe coin stuff too, because there's a part of me like as a builder that thinks, man, it's really frustrating to see some of these meme coins hit, 100 million, half a billion market cap. Pepe even hit 1 billion market cap, I think. But on the other hand, there's not much, like what else is top of the funnel? What else is kind of bringing people in to make them start to experiment with it? So I'm not sure. I used to be very negative towards like meme coins and everything. Now I've kind of just grown to accept it, just like not going to be the old man shaking his stick at the kids for their memes, coins, and their NFTs.
Yeah, I agree with I don't feel the need to criticize it for the same reason I don't feel the need to like criticize an infant for crying. Like, I mean, it's a little unpleasant, right? Like you'd rather not see some of the stuff, but at the same time, though, it's just part of a gestation cycle. Like view this from a technological lens of how adoption works and S-curves and who the most risk-seeking individuals are. The internet went through growing pains like this too. It was mostly used for porn. It was most of the tech used to grow the internet and improve it was for porn. Like people just saw emails and nothing else. Paul Krugman has his famous quote that it's going to be like the fax machine. Like, it was mostly used by unsavories and shitty reasons or reasons that didn't seem readily apparent why they're valuable. We're having the same thing here. Like we're creating a permissionless space where we're not trying to gatekeep anybody. So you shouldn't try to keep any of that out because that's like definitionally what we're trying to actually not let people do. I think you're probably more a threat than the Pepe coin people who can try to stop the Pepe coin people. And like who are the biggest risk takers you'll ever know? Criminals, right? Sleazebags, like they're not risk adverse. So like you should expect that to kind of manifest here initially, and it will grow out of it. As we get more stable and develop infrastructure that allows people to do more stable economic transactions, get a yield curve, things like that. Like it'll grow out of it. Again, it's an infant crying right now. Like there's not much to criticize. Like he'll develop more, So I just view it as part of like a life cycle. It's nothing to like hate, like or dislike. It's just something to understand and stop obsessing over it because there's much more to the space than, meme coins.
Definitely. What about the crypto or sort of DeFi ideology really resonated with you when you first started getting into this? So you mentioned earlier that when you started to learn about it, the ideology behind it really kind of struck a chord. So like, what is your ideology?
Yeah, that's developed over time too. Like I'm definitely not the same guy politically like I was in 2016 or something. I guess right now, and what resonates with me so much is I have a very intense disdain for people that try to disallow access or usage of things in the name of comfort, safety, security, and that they can manage it more effectively. I think those people almost invariably are often the least suited to manage it, and usually end up politicizing it or weaponizing it in some way. And that's just on the ideological side. So long as it can be facilitated, like I'm not calling like banks or like financial infrastructure parasitic. It was necessary because like we didn't have the means to transact in a peer-to-peer way yet. For the same reason, like obviously the Netflix business model is better than Blockbuster, but we couldn't have Netflix in 1990 because we didn't have the internet and the streaming capabilities to stream video. But once you have that technology, there's an obviously better economic model or model to deliver it. So like those things were previously necessary, and now they're just not. Like what we're building is obviating them. So I love that it disallows the people who want to try to control and limit things, the inability to do that on the ideological side. And on the economic side, like it's just like axiomatic that the more entities you remove out of a supply chain, the more value accrues to you and I. Like if I want to transact with just you, if I can get an intermediary out of there or have less intermediaries, that's less of a spread for them, less of a cut, and then more value we retain, like definitionally. Same thing, like even with Uber, like this is a famous Vitalik quote where it's like, globalism outsources the periphery and puts like the factory workers and, sends them out of business. Whereas blockchains disintermediate the center. Like, if I want to hail a car ride, here's his example he uses. I just want to hail you with a car to come beat me. Uber is an intermediary that is necessary. But if I can get them out of the equation, just talk to you, I should want that. That's what blockchains do. So like from an economic standpoint, I love that. It provides a sense of hardness. That's kind of I don't want a term to going down a rabbit hole, but it lets us act in like a predictable, manageable way. It's actually based off a pretty well-known, or I know hardness, right? But it's actually based off a pretty well-written article by a guy named Josh Stark from the Ethereum Foundation that basically goes into how blockchains allow us to transact confidently and with a confident understanding of the future in a way that like regulation has done for us previously, that like contract law does, that rules do. Blockchains substantiate that on code. So it provides that hardness, that predictability without all of that bureaucracy and middlemen. So yeah, that's a confluence of those two things. Like ideologically, completely politically aligned with the people it removes from the equation, their ability to control things. And then economically, it's just obviously superior to me. It just needs to scale. But that's a growth thing. That'll come with time.
Definitely going through a little bit of the growing pains right now. And that's so regulators, basically, when you're talking about the people that are trying to slow it down. I mean,
previously necessary, and now they're kind of wearing out their worth. Like we're kind of self-regulating a bit. Anyway, yeah, they had utility beforehand, but now they're just kind of like, this doesn't let us control things like we like. We don't like it, so we'll make up whatever reason we want. But anyway, yeah.
Also, don't worry about going down rabbit holes. All about rabbit holes.
Oh God,
whatever you're
gonna regret that.
Yeah, this is it's a very loose structure here. We kind of just go with the flow. Also, by the way, I don't know if you've noticed, but there is a fly that is like harassing me. So if you see me at any point like this, because I spent like 35 minutes trying to get rid of this guy before you got on, but I failed. Apparently, I'm slow, so not fast enough to kill those guys. So you are the first anon that we've had on the pod, and welcome. We love anons here. I love anons. I have spent some time as an anonymous individual. I was actually hired by Decrypt. Decrypt hired my anon persona off of a Twitter space. Yeah, oh, wow. And then I kind of just like, okay, this is really me. And started working with them as, Reza Jaffrey. So I've spent a little time on both sides of the fence. And like, I definitely do not spend as much time as I used to kind of building up my brand as an anon and living that life, I guess. But I saw that you tweeted recently, I think it was a quote tweet of Martin Shkreli. He has been pretty outspoken against anons, and you had a term that you used to describe non-anons. I think it was face cells. Yeah. That's super, super interesting. So I guess I'm kind of curious, just let's dive into that a little bit. Like, what are your thoughts on anons versus face cells? Like, what do you see as why are you anon? If you don't mind me going into that, what do you see the benefits of it?
Yeah. And this is something I kind of, to touch on the post I made, I was trying to basically sort of psychoanalyze the temperament that would even want to be anon and why, and then kind of reflecting on a bit of why I want to as well. I think it probably very strongly correlates with introversion and extroversion. That's just speculation on my part, but frankly, most psychological research is that. But, it allows, Martin's very extroverted. Like he just chills in spaces all day. He'll stream himself just like eating a sandwich and just talk with people. Like he clearly gets something out of socialization in a way that seems to be stimulating to him, and like kind of definitionally so extroverted people tend to not be that. I like socializing. Like I'm certainly on Twitter doing it often, but I can be very intentional about it that way, whereas like if you're just hanging out stream, it's sort of just shooting the shit. Like you're not, it's more casual. I guess it's more stream of conscious. And some people just like that more. And I suppose I'm just less that. So I think it correlates along those lines. And along Martin's disdain for it, like Martin's issues really come from like the asymmetry of, you know who I am, but I don't know who you are, which shouldn't matter, which doesn't matter if you're discussing, debating whatever conversations that are productive or useful on Twitter. But when you start getting into ad hominem, then an asymmetry presents itself because the anon knows who you are, but you don't know who he is. And if he's attacking you personally, it's like now I'm disarmed or I'm less so. I can't do with that. And then Martin seems to have like a tacit issue with that. He presents it in a more old school way. I feel he kind of sounds like a 60-year-old uncle sometimes with the anon stuff. But like I feel that's ultimately his issue is like there's an asymmetry there. And one, you're coming at me like you should expect less decorum when that happens. Like I'm going to start coming at you, and if that means letting people know who you are, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. I commiserate with that. Like, listen, if you're devolving the conversation into like a shit throwing fest and insulting someone personally, like you shouldn't be surprised when people come after you and find out who you are, because you piss people off. That's just how the world works. Like, I don't know what else to say to that. Like, it's not a principled thing. It's not anything. It's just like, dude, you should expect to like have people come after you if you come after them, and they're going to go after your sensitivities. Like, that's the best thing to go after if you're in a shit throwing fight, right? I'm going to try to attack you in the way I know you don't want to be attacked. So, like, just use your head there. Like, if you want to maintain that, don't let the conversation devolve to that, because I think that's what makes people particularly spiteful and willing to do that. And that's what kind of drew it out of Martin. I feel like to circle back on, like, why do I do it? I've really considered like showing my face. Like, I already just go by my first name, right? So, and the people who I work with know who I am. So, like, my anonness is soft. I've gone just, it's right. Yeah. Like, I'm not super schizo about it. Like, I went to a Starknet event a couple weeks ago. People knew who I was. I had the rabbit shirt on. They knew I was BackTheBunny. I've gone to some conferences. I did like a talk at Permissionless, the first Austin conference this year. And so, like, I'm not like hyper vigilant about it, but at the same time, I just don't think what I write about is enhanced by seeing my face, I guess is the way to see it. Like, I just don't, it almost detracts from it in a way. And I don't think it aids any brand I may or may not have either, seeing my face. I almost feel like it's one of those like good, like fun to know things, but it doesn't really move the needle. So yeah, I guess it's just a bit of pragmatism in that I don't think it enhances or helps me. Maybe it makes it easier for, jerks or people who might have whatever reason to attack me, makes their life easier. And yeah, I don't know if it actually helps me individually either, because you can still reach out to me. You can still talk to me. I'm not like going to not have conversations with people. So like even building my own like path in life, I don't think it constrains that either. So yeah, kind of confluence of all those things. A lot of points there, but anyway.
Yeah. No, it's super interesting. And
your camera went off. Your camera went off, by the way. I don't know if you're...
It's still showing up for me.
On my side then. Okay, you're fine. It's just on my side.
Can you still see it, Josh? Can you pop in here for a sec?
It's just me. Yeah, I can't see any of you right now. But that happened earlier, and then you came back. So I guess it's just my visual.
Yeah, so with the anon versus face cell stuff, like obviously I, by definition right now, am face cell. But it first started thinking about it when I was anon, and it was during like the NFT bull, when NFTs started really going crazy. Because like 2017, 2018, even 2019, crypto scene, crypto Twitter was pretty much all anon. And if you weren't anon, you were the odd man out, and you kind of stuck out. Right. And then when all the NFT people started coming in, I think NFTs are another one of those big like top of funnel things, like meme coins, where like
right.
It's just like they got a bunch of attention, brought a bunch of new people in. Most of them left, but some of them started like filtering down into like, oh, what's DeFi and what's this and what's that. But when all these new people started coming in, there was a lot of hate towards anons, because anons can say whatever the fuck they want, really.
Yeah.
And I started thinking about it because I was going through a really hard time trying to figure out if I should remain anon or if I should switch to my other, my real name and stuff like that. And when I came down to it, the only reasons I could think of for not being anon were selfish reasons. And that made me more sympathetic for anons and like less sympathetic for face cells. Even though I did decide, like I selfishly was like, you know what, now that I'm working with Decrypt, I want this attached to my name. I want this on my resume. I want to be able to use this in the future. Right. If I didn't care about like having that sort of like street cred or being able to attach that commendation to my name, then I would have just stayed anon. So like it kind of made me like I respect anons more now, because it's like it's a thankless job. You're just out here as like a chicken PFP or whatever, and like it's tough.
To kind of speak to that, and I don't think you're being, I get where you're coming from on like the selfish rationale, and you're more viewing it from like, I can further my own interests by people knowing who I am. Hey, that's fine. I mean, selfish, I also don't think is an inherently like negative word. But, I would say too, like, I don't think I'm sacrificing that, because like, I very much care about this identity. Like, I'm not just shit posting. I say some edgy stuff, but it's stuff I would stand by, like even in the conversation with people who know who I am. I'm not dropping stuff that like I would be fearful if it's associated with me personally. And people who like me or want to reach out to me, like this name is persistent, like it's there. Just because it's not my government issued name and you see my face, like that doesn't constrain anybody from interacting with me or working with me that otherwise maybe wouldn't want to anyway. And frankly, if it would, like that's I don't know, like a corporation or something. I don't know how much I am working with them anyways, if it's that kind of weird for them. Because they can know who I am personally. Obviously, I'll show them my ID. Like, I'm not trying to be crazy there. I just like, because I care about this brand and I'm not like I'm working to build it up. Like I'm working to build it up like anyone would an identity. So like just because it's a more exclusively digital identity that isn't associated with like a birth certificate, I don't think enhances anything or changes it. Maybe even from like an online standpoint, there's a hint of allure to it even too, where you don't quite know who that guy is. That maybe helps even. So yeah, even thinking self-interestedly, I think plenty of anons act that way. Like dudes who like have persistent presences, like Scoopy Trooples, he definitely has cred. Like the guy who founded Alchemix, no one knows who he is. I mean, I'm sure some people do, but he's super anon,
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah.
Do you have any non-anon accounts? I feel silly saying non-anon accounts that you use regularly?
No, I don't actually. Even before this, was only anon. I wasn't like a Twitter power user like I am now before this. And even like LinkedIn, like I've actually changed that to not a real name, and LinkedIn doesn't like that.
That's funny.
It shut down my account's not shut down, but it won't show up in searches, and they won't let me do anything until I put my real name on there. So yeah, I've kind of taken it off in general, just because I'm not sure.
You fully adopted it. You are the bunny now. There's no there's no differentiation there. That's awesome.
Basically, I guess.
Yeah, for me, I still tweet on my anon account sometimes, and I also was sort of like I wasn't very good at hiding it. There's definitely like if you try hard enough, you can find it. It's not like but there are still things where like I'll go to tweet something and then I second guess myself and I'm like, you know what? Like I'll tweet this from the anon account. I don't want this attached directly to me. And it's most of the time it's like my silly opinions, because what's ended up happening as I've built up the brand of Reza Joffrey or whatever is I've had certain things go like mini viral, and they're usually more serious things, like something about like DeFi or stable coins or like decentralization in general, and then I'll get I'll get like a burst of followers, and then I just get paralyzed where I'm like, oh shit, all these new people are expecting me to say something smart, something about the stuff that they followed me for, and I just tweet about my dogs half the time. So now I've just started using my anon account as sort of like the funnel for anything that I feel like is not as serious enough for my main account. But it's a weird dynamic, and like every time I get like a burst of followers on the main account, then I'll always like go over to the anon one for a while and kind of just like hang out there until I feel extroverted again and then go back to the main account. So it's a funny dance. Yeah,
I feel you. And like that definitely subconsciously or consciously influences how you communicate things if your face is there. And yeah, I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing. It's a comfort level thing. Like it's a temperament thing. And it's also, like you said, like it's, if, people know who I am, and it's not like anything super hardcore. It's more like just not making that the main thing, you see, just from a focus on the content instead of the subject matter or something. And maybe it's a little liberating too, because it makes me feel a bit more at ease saying things, even though like I know they can still be associated with me. Doesn't make me like shit posty, but perhaps it does provide this like mental comfort being a little more expressive, candid, which I mean, I think people respect now too, like more than they did previously. I think the 2008 mindset of canceling is antiquated. I don't think that applies so much anymore. I think Trump changed like the framework for leaning into that. And then Elon is kind of advancing the ball to where it's almost becoming not in vogue. It's just not, it's not as faux pas to say something against, official corporate stances. It might cancel you with Netflix's human resources department, but I mean, do you really care? Like it's if you're in DeFi, it's probably okay. Like, in fact, you might even get some credibility and respect for being candid about something that you believe in, as long as you're not just trying to instigate people. Yeah. Anyway, that's just like thoughts on that and how you express stuff from it. But it depends on the anon. Like, if it's a genuine anon, I would describe myself as that. I don't think there's any difference. I want to build this persona. I care about it. Like, I'm not going to run it to the ground by being a dick. If it's like just a respawned anon, he'll just respawn again. If he gets banned, yeah, that guy's probably just going to be more streamer conscious, insulting. So it depends on the anon, right? Whereas face cells kind of have this universal skin in the game, and the anon depends. Yeah, he might have a lot of skin in the game, or might have like none. It depends on what he's trying to do.
Yeah. I think like the freeing thing about being anon is like you can abandon that if you want to. Like if we were just talking about how like cancel culture is kind of dying down, but like you could get canceled and just start again, and like I think that is freeing, to know that like you have that ability. I think knowing that someone isn't going to start ridiculing you for your personal life also adds like a sense of I can say whatever I want, like no one's gonna like look me up on Instagram and like make comments about like my wife or my
Yeah.
family or stuff like that, you know, like
Yeah.
but I never really started fights as an anon either, so like I'm a bad example of it. But
Yeah. No, it's just like if you're riling people up at the point where they want to look you up individually and come after you that way, like really recalibrate the conversations you're having. Like one, even if you're being genuine, why are you talking to that person? Like, what are you gaining? Like, you're not convincing them of anything, obviously. You just, just exit from that. Like, it's just not useful. It's not probably not helping you. It's not helping further anything you're trying to share. So, like, more than like, don't shitpost and insult people. Like, don't bring that upon yourself. But even if you're being genuine and someone's like that, like, block and move on. Like, remove those people from your life. Like, I mean, I know that's easier said than done and kind of a platitude, but like if you instantiate that and like act it out, it just improves your existence. Don't waste your time on people like that. They're just malignant. They're going to get mad about anything and just avoid them,
one of my skills, I will say, is I'm very good at identifying when something is no longer worth the time. I'm very quick to cut people out. Some people would probably call this a flaw. I think it's a skill. But like the moment that I'm like, okay, there is no benefit or value to this relationship, and I don't mean that in like a purely extractive or even financial way. Benefit could be like emotional benefit or like, intellectual benefit. If I feel like I learned something from you, that's a benefit,
Right.
But like the moment I feel like something is solely taking away from me, I'm just very, very quick to just completely cut it out. I think it saves me a lot of stress. The same, it's like the IRL block button, like I'm very quick to hit the IRL block button every time someone pisses me off. I'm just like, okay, removing you from the circle that I choose to think about in my head.
Yeah. Sunk costs, like don't, as you get older, I think you develop a better filter and heuristic for that too. You just kind of understand who you are more. And when you understand who you are more, it's more easy to act out in a way that I guess comports with that or helps, you get how you respond to things and what is or isn't good. And if you do that more quickly, it's probably because you're like, I've seen this before. It's a heuristic, right? I know how this plays out. I'm going to get rid of it because there's like a 95% chance it's what I think it is.
So I've seen you post a good amount about miladies. You seem to be a proponent of miladies. You speak very positively of them. I saw you had a great Twitter thread about sort of like the counterculture that they represent and like countercultures throughout history, which is awesome. Highly suggest you guys go check it out if you haven't. But I wanted to ask you about the current drama that is going on with miladies, because I was super surprised by it. And I'm sure like you as well as the community, or I'm not going to speak for you, but so to anyone who isn't aware, there's some drama going on right now where the core team behind miladies has gotten into an argument, or they've essentially split, where the guy, or I don't know if it's a guy or a girl, whoever, Charlotte Fang has essentially... It's a dude?
Yeah. An Indian dude, no less. Just fun fact.
I mean, you probably can explain this better to our viewers than I can. Would you mind going into like what's going on right now?
Yeah, I'm, I guess, loosely aware of it just from some threads. I haven't like dug into the lawsuit, but basically there's a rift between who is or isn't a founder and equity and ownership. And, it kind of seems, again, not like going deep into the docs, like the kind of classic, you've come into a gold mine and now everyone thinks their equity should be higher. Like it's not a new story. Like it's pretty common where like people are more casual about the startup at first because, it's probably going to fail and like, oh shit, it's actually succeeding. Or I was the guy who came up with that idea. I should have 30, it's kind of that. And I have no take on who is right or wrong here. As is with most things, it's probably a little bit in the middle. What I do just find really off-putting and just effeminate is the vocal, like the bringing it to public. Like it's just, that's a surefire way to just make it as miserable and as awful as possible, to bring like personal attack and just vibes that don't help you. Like for the most part, like controversy, especially with the Milady brand, is a good thing. Like it's a very good thing. But this is like bureaucratic lawsuit stuff. And like, it's not a good look, especially like being so kind of anti-establishment and, what Milady is, to go to courts and, have to expose it. It's just not, I just don't think it's the look you want. And nuking it to this level where now it's all public, I don't know whose fault it is there, like, and who really ultimately maybe, did the thing that betrayed trust and caused it to get to that. But I mean, goddamn, you should really try to avoid that when you can. Like, if you can get your divorce to be arbitrated, do that. Because if you guys can't agree to that and it goes like nuclear, you both lose. Like, you just do, unless you're this insanely wealthy. Like, this is more for normal people. But, yeah, I just don't like the flamboyant public name calling approach to this stuff. You got to vet your founders and kind of make sure you're dealing with a reasonable person at first. And it's just kind of a shame when it goes that way. So my view is more on like a meta view of like disliking all sides for nuking it to this level and not being reasonable about who did what. Because someone's clearly being unreasonable. I don't know who it is, but this approach doesn't help you. So I'm just being pragmatic about it.
Are you active in the milady community? Like, can you speak to the vibes? I guess, like, are vibes down? Like, how are people feeling?
I mean, I interact with them a lot. Like, a lot of mutuals I have are them. And I mean, just like, if I put a milady PFP up, I just basically would be at this point, like, I think that's the only thing separating me from them. I feel very spiritually milady. But I don't think it's much any different. Like, it provided some drama for like 3-4 days, and I think they're kind of back to just doing their own thing and being silly online and trolling and doing their stuff. Like, it's nothing that really relies. Like, I don't think Remelia Corporation's success actually matters at all for milady and what they're doing. That's something what I wrote about in the thread and why it has value, or why it has like intrinsic value insofar as an NFT can, is that I think it solves like a 4chan coordination problem where, the people on 4chan, which, it's all over the place, but there's some smart people on 4chan. There's also a lot of like, incendiary stuff, but it's an anonymous forum and they can't coordinate outside of the forum. Whereas like milady kind of provides this anonymous, persistent presence where you can do that. And it kind of lets this very powerful subculture that's been confined to one sphere, like, to permeate a little more effectively. And I don't think Remelia Corporation matters for that. I think it might help it a bit, have some swag printed out, whatever, but I don't think that changed the internet culture of why this is successful. So I think the vibes are fine. I think milady will be fine, but like Remelia and all the like official business avenues of it, I don't know. I don't know if that really matters though either. Ladies are good as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I've been eyeing them for a while. I wanted one for a long time. And this whole lawsuit thing kind of did like deter me, because I was going to buy them when they were at like 2.5 ETH, and then they shot up past it. And I was like, oh, I'll wait for them to go down. And they just never went down. Now they are back down at almost 2.5 ETH. I just don't know anymore, cause I can't remember who tweeted this out, but it was such a short and good explanation of the sort of like vibe shift, let's call it, from like, my lady before, fuck laws. My lady now, I'm going to sue you. And like that, it's really just like, it has kind of made me take a step back and be like, I don't know. And it speaks almost to like what you actually tweeted about this in your thread about miladies, was how like the whole no roadmap was kind of like a part of the culture, like no roadmap, no utility. And I think that is a huge strength that people really sleep on. Like, Larva Labs didn't do shit, and CryptoPunks became one of the biggest, blue chip NFTs that there were. Larva Labs never made an announcement, never made a game, never did any of that stuff, and I think that after a while, people were just competing for attention in the NFT space, and they started rolling out these crazy roadmaps and this crazy utility concepts, just trying to compete for attention. And that really distracted people from the fact that the more actively you're trying to deliver on something, the more opportunities you have to fuck up. And for a long time, milady didn't fuck anything up because they weren't really delivering on anything. There weren't any open promises that they had to deliver on. So like, it was just up only. And then the moment that they kind of start to come out and actively talk, and it ends up being fighting, it's just like starts going down.
Yeah, and I think that having that like delivery mentality it's not appropriate for NFTs. Like, I haven't delved into a lot of roadmaps and details on NFTs, so just qualifying with that. But like, that's not why people buy them. Like, do you buy it so you can get access to like an event they might hold once? Like, we're a global distributed like network and culture. Like, I think you're kind of missing the essence, and this is, and it corroborates my view here based off the success miladi's had, where it's like you build a culture and kind of vibe and shared interests and viewpoints, and sort of like a refractory kind of mentality and whatever you want the culture to be. And if it's a powerful sort of like galvanizing force, that's what does it. Like, milady's not popular or successful because they have a roadmap or they're delivering value. That's how a stock, that's how Amazon thinks. That's how a business thinks. That's how we think. We're delivering a real service, right? Like, we need to provide value and something serious here. There should be a roadmap for that. NFTs and this culture component, it's the same thing as like, to me, as like the Web2 marketer who's like, don't say that, it might be controversial. Like, no, say that if you believe it. And if it does the rounds and gets visibility, that's a good thing. Like, it's almost like the no controversy or is bad sort of mindset. Like, don't be so afraid. Don't have to live by these antiquated paradigms that I just don't think apply here. And milady just kind of went for it because it had a great vibe and it attracted a lot of people who were just energized by this like freeing, fun, silly thing. And you have a winner on your hands. So yeah, I think that's if you're an NFT project and you're kind of doing roadmap stuff, man, I just don't. it's your success at the very least is not because of that. It's not maybe not in spite of that, but it's just like it wasn't the catalyzing force for why you did a good job. I just think the NFT kind of culture and success framework is very different there.
Yeah, like Bored Apes did not blow up because of Ape Fest, you know?
Yeah, exactly. No one cares, right? It's not.
Yeah, and like I had a few Bored Ape owners actually tell me that going to Ape Fest was sort of their aha moment of like, we got to get out of this shit. You know, like when they're like, I had someone who's super active in the Bored Ape community tell me that his moment where he decided to like sell everything, capitulate, was when he went to the last Ape Fest and was like, this is it. Like, okay, it's cool. They've got all these like acts and stuff, but this is the pinnacle of my utility. And it's almost like you got to leave more up to mystery. You know, it's like if you paint the picture of this is why we have value and then you deliver that or you create that picture, there's always a chance people aren't going to like it or that it's just not going to be enough, you know? Whereas like Milady's didn't make any promises.
No, yeah. And I think if the mindset too is like, this is the value I'm getting owning an NFT, like, dude, that from a meta standpoint, like I don't care about the values being delivered, but if that was the viewprint of why you owned it, like you're utility minded, like you don't care about associating with people who have it, right? You don't really care about wearing an ape thing in public or on your like you're just doing it because you think you get something in return. That's very transactional. That's not a culture. Like that's not anything to build a rallying cry around, you know? And so it's got to be powerful independent of that. And if you add some value beyond that, cool. That's icing on the cake. That's not the cake though. Yeah, it's got to be that. And it's unusual to have that genuinely happen. So I wouldn't be bullish on a lot of NFT collections overall, but Milady, I certainly would not be bearish on it. Yeah, I might even pick up a couple if they're that cheap, frankly, because I do genuinely think it's like the cultural force is strong, and I think it's here for a bit. I don't think anything like this lawsuit will put an end to that.
Josh, the producer, will probably make me edit this out, but anyone listening, if you want to bribe your way onto the pod, the cost is 4 Miladies.
For Miladies.
That's all it takes. It's not a big ask, I don't think. You know, they're going down. You can wait a little bit. No rush. Another thread that you posted that I really enjoyed was your Vietnam thesis. But before I get into that, or before we dive into that more, I wanted to ask you, in your opinion, what is the US dollar backed by?
I mean, I'm actually, it's funny you asked that today. I was putting something together, kind of speaking on that. I mean, right now it's backed by, I guess you could almost say that it's military and it's economics. You could say it's power and belief that, you know, it's every currency is almost a fiat currency at this point. There are some exceptions. I think like Hungary not Hungary. There's a couple that are still backed by like physical assets. So, I mean, it's not like if being a fiat currency is unique to the US. So you're kind of dealing with a relative value game at this point. The US comparatively, you know, you could say provides the most confidence, and it's backed by a overwhelmingly powerful military and the ownership of its financial infrastructure too, which, you know, basically mandates things like dollar diplomacy. Used to be done unilaterally. Now it's done through international organizations like the WHO or the IMF, which are U.S. institutions, right? So like they still can do dollar diplomacy that way. They can still evoke sanctions that way, and attack with soft violence, soft power, the people that it doesn't like or that's opposing it. So, you know, all of that kind of feeds into confidence and belief in the US dollar as something you want to hold when you don't want to hold anything else. Like it's kind of what a reserve currency means. Like it doesn't really have an official meaning behind that. And it's just like, well, this one seems like it's the best thing to sit in because most of the transactions I might want to do also will be facilitated in dollars. So it's kind of a practical decision too. I think Germany used to hold a lot of like lira back in the day before the euro, not because they thought the lira was reserve currency, because they did a lot of transactions with Italy. You know, it's just a practical decision. So I think a lot of it feeds into that. So it's like it's a blend of practicality, military force, and ownership of financial infrastructure. Many of those, 2 out of 3 of those, DeFi hurts and undermines. And that's kind of the thesis of the Vietnam thesis of why you should absolutely expect us to continue to get attacked. This isn't like a legal framework conversation. This is game theory. View the U.S. as a cartel. If I were to put a framing of, hey, one powerful cartel that elicits its power by way of XYZ is about to have X and Y hurt by this cartel. Well, how do you expect it to respond to that? But, well, it wouldn't surprise you how they'd respond to that. You wouldn't expect them to say, well, the courts will defend me. Like, no, they're going to go beyond, they're going to go outside of that. They're going to act first, what's the frame? Don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. That's how they're going to, and they're not even going to ask for forgiveness. They're just going to do it. So anyway, that's a long answer to your US dollar question. So.
No, I very much agree. I essentially think the dollar is backed by violence.
Yeah, proof of violence network is what the name of the piece is, which I didn't think I came up with this term. I didn't hear it from anyone else when I did write it. I wrote about an issue maybe earlier this year, but I'm rewriting it. I think proof of violence is fair. I think the US instantiate a lot of its abilities it has now is because it's won wars. It's really been overwhelmingly dominant in official formal warfare, and it's allowed the global order to be built under its discretion because of that. And it sustains itself with actual, its rule of law, its property rights are very good. There's actual network effects here and stuff that it's not all coercion. People actually go to the US because it is the cleanest shirt in the dirty hamper, so to speak. It does have the best property rights. Yeah. So the proof of violence thing is almost something you have to, it's not a persistent thing. Whereas proof of stake is something you kind of have to persistently show. Whereas proof of violence is a once every 70 years. You lay it out, you win, you've established that violence, and then you maintain that dominance through, incentives and having a good system. So it's a blend of violence and infrastructure that kind of, I guess, sustains it.
Super interesting, this the dollar Ponzi that we've all kind of inherited into. And this is something I talk about, or this is what drew me into, this is why I asked you on the pod, essentially, is because I feel like we're very aligned in the way that we think about fiat currency and the government's involvement in our industry. And I think you have some really cool opinions on it. Do you think that we're experiencing a coordinated attack right now, or is it just kind of happenstance that let me take a step back here. So when a lot of people talk about shadow organizations like the Illuminati or whatever, I'll kind of be hey, I think that's kind of just chance, I don't think that all of these people coordinated to do this. I think it kind of just happened that this happened to happen at this point in time. Do you think that that is the case with the US's actions against DeFi, with the SEC and then in other departments, or do you believe that this is actually a coordinated attack and that there are secret meetings where people are getting together and being okay, how are we going to fuck up DeFi today?
So the Illuminati kind of thing, which is to say the really broad-scaled coordinated effort to undermine or do something. It depends on the degree of coordination needed to do that. Some of the grandiose ones that just require this kind of bureaucratic competence that probably just clearly isn't there. Yeah, but this is something where, you're really talking about the executive branch, a regulatory body that it directly oversees. If Gensler gets fired, everyone wants to have happen, I posted about this. I memed about this. It's a good meme where I showed a Hydra. I took a picture of a Hydra, and then a guy is firing Gary Gensler. He cuts off his head oh, there's another Gary Gensler. There's another guy who's meaner. Here's the next guy up. It's just the next man up. They have a shed behind the White House filled with these guys who went to Bain and Boston Consulting and Harvard and all that. They all have beautiful credentials. They're just going to bring the next guy in. It's what the establishment fundamentally wants, which is predominantly filled with unelected bureaucrats. And that's when people see the deep state. That is not a schizo construct of whoa, it just means the unelected bureaucratic state. That's what that means, which is clearly there. And the president actually even is extremely limited in his ability to fire people from that or change it, very limited. There's actually a Supreme Court decision that severely constrains. The executive in chief is not that at all. He's not a chief. He has very constrained abilities on who he can and cannot fire from certain state things. Yeah, I think there is some coordination there because the state apparatus appoints and clearly guides a lot of this regulatory viewpoints. So I don't think it's that outlandish to think the SEC and certain government bodies, maybe even say the NSA or CIA, who want to have coordination control over this stuff. The CIA is clearly, if there's any refutation that don't be all Illuminati about it. The CIA openly and has been caught many, many times doing the most you would say conspiracy theory to your shit. It's dude, that was, they literally did it. So I don't put anything really past that organization. And I don't know how incompetent I would maybe say that they are. So anyway, to circle back to your question in a long-winded way, I'm known to do, I do think there is definitely some coordination happening here because I think the US is really waking up to what DeFi does. And they didn't care beforehand because it seemed like silly coins and whatever. We don't care. But when it became apparent, though, that, wow, this lets North Korea avoid sanctions. This lets Iran and Russia do things we don't like them to do. This lets people me and someone in Montenegro transacted. We don't know what happened. There's no reporting going on there. From a taxation standpoint and local, there's no 1099s generated on DeFi. They get that now. That's the motivation to me. It's very clear why the state would be motivated to get in front of that. They're going to create whatever political subterfuge they need to justify actions to stop that. But again, from a game theoretic standpoint, you think they want less control over their financial infrastructure? Like, obviously not. They don't care if it's a cool new innovative technology. You are not assessing a new SaaS product that lets you store data in the cloud more easily, right? Like, this is something that every single industrial revolution has been accretive to US power or to state power. It's made it more productive. It's made it richer. It's been a good thing, unambiguously so for states in the US especially. This is not that. This doesn't help them. Like, really view it from the lens of the adversary. It's totally reasonable and rational for them to attack this. And, I feel you understand that. All the other nonsense, you don't even care. Like, if Elizabeth Warren wants to say Bitcoin's polluting the climate and environment, like, okay, whatever. And the next day you'll draw something else out of a hat about how evil it is. And you just pick a reason. The next person who says it's racist or whatever, okay. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, the political language does not have to be true. It has to be
Bitcoin
effective.
is racist.
Right. You'll get some variation of that. It harms underserved minorities, and look at the Pareto look how it's attributing to these people, and it's a Pareto distribution. Everything follows a Pareto distribution. But this one's particularly nefarious, right? And the justification doesn't matter. Like, it's going to be nonsense. You're going to catch lies all the time, and it's not an educational thing. Like, that's another core thing I kind of talk on. Like, they're not doing this because they're uneducated. They're doing this because they're starting to get educated, and they actually understand what this means. That's why they're attacking it. It's like not we need to inform Senator Warren and these people of more of what's really going on here and how great this is. Like, I think she gets it. I think a lot of these things, I think the banks that support her legislation about DeFi really get it. Just understand that, like, laws made before computers are not going to save you. Just being comfortable with that reality is just a good place to be, because I just think it's going to be reality. I'm not happy about it, and I'm not trying to black pill about it. In fact, my long-term opinion is very white pilled, but my near-term one is just very understand what you're up against and why it doesn't like you.
What is your long-term white pill opinion?
Building on kind of the thesis there of like expect to be attacked. Part of the white pilling comes, this is why I call it the Vietnam thesis. It draws from the Vietnam War, which when I say Vietnam War, I'm really saying guerrilla warfare. And then I'm really drawing from on like, when I say the U.S. has won wars, right, and it's been very militarily successful, who has that been against? It's been against like China, Russia, USSR, Germany, Japan, Mexico, right? Like formal traditional military structures that have a chain of command. They occupy territory. We know where you are. You have soldiers with uniforms. U.S. dominates that. Like, who do they lose to now, right? Like, they lose to Vietnam farmers that are diffuse and anonymous and you can't identify. They lost the Vietnam War. And the Afghanistan go herders and the Taliban. These are incredibly inferior opponents in any paradigm you want to chalk that up to. But because of how this kind of warfare is persistent and it's
impossible
to take them all out, unless you nuke the whole country, which you can't do that. You just get fatigued and you lose. A Henry Kissinger quote, I reference in the series a lot, which is called Generations of War, Business, and Crypto. And the Vietnam thesis is a part of that. But he has a great quote where it's the conventional army loses if it does not win, and the guerrilla wins if he does not lose. That kind of speaks to us here. Like, you don't need to defeat anybody. You just need to not die. Like, because when you have a big adversary who just can't take you out because you're just Hydra and you're all over the place, they'll eventually quit. And that's the white pill kind of thesis here is drawn from that. The SEC is built like the US military. Regulators are. They're built to go after Deutsche, Goldman Sachs, like Fidelity. Read your S1 from your stock file. Like you have an official compliance department. Let me speak to your manager, right? You have an official military structure. You have an official business structure. You occupy territory. You have an office building. I can go and talk to you. Like, I know where you are. I know who you are. That's very analogous to the military structure there, of like who they're built to go after. Who are they not built to go after? Tens of thousands of developers globally and millions of users across the globe, like armed with cryptography, AI, all the intellectual capital, and are well-funded. You're not built for that fight. Like, you're going to lose that fight. So that's the white pill that comes in. Like, it's going to be uncomfortable initially because they're going to try to make examples and they're going to not go out quietly. But over the long run, you can't stop this for the same reason they couldn't stop the Pirate Bay. Why can you still torrent stuff? It's because peer-to-peer networks, you can't take them out. Like, unless you want to go like China tier draconian or really fundamentally alter the essence of what the West is or what these countries are. And then you're just going to lose because people will vote with their feet. I'll move to El Salvador. Like, I don't care. I have no allegiance to, I'm very like sovereign individual in that way, where I'll go where I'm treated best. And then other countries will fill that vacuum and see the arbitrage opportunity. If the U.S. wants to go full China, you'll go live in Georgia or Estonia, or El Salvador is safe now. That was sure. I'll go there. Like, I'll go where people actually want me to be and want this space. So that's where the white pill comes in. Is you can't take this out. Can't stop it for empirical. You can even draw lessons from history. And this is an eventuality that, again, will just come about because it's going to keep building and proliferating. And that's the white pill, basically.
Yeah, it's interesting about your point on the whole being sovereign and everything and like not being afraid to leave. I'm the same way in that like I moved to the US when I was 18 to chase the opportunities here. And so like when the opportunities start to like, or when they start to regulate my opportunities away, I think about leaving. And like it's a lot of people who are born and raised in the US. I don't know what your like upbringing is, and I won't ask since you're a non. But a lot of people who are born and raised in the US, I feel like the thought of leaving America, and this is most politicians. Most politicians are born and raised in the US. Most people in the government are born and raised in the US. The thought of leaving is so foreign. You know, it's like, oh, like how could anyone even think about existing somewhere else? So, like it's not that bad. It's
no.
You know, it's pretty chill. And I feel like the US really has to do more. Either you put your feet down and you say, okay, like we're fighting this crypto shit as hard as we can, or you just like kind of lay down and like let this happen, because like they let it grow too much, you know, like you said, like we're too well funded. I'll use the royal we here. And we're too well funded. You know, like I was actually one of the most bullish moments, and this, I don't know if you or I don't know if anyone would agree with me on this, but like one of my most recent bullish moments was when the Curve guy was bailed out by other people in DeFi. You know, when other people in DeFi came up and were like, okay, like we're going to bail this guy out because this affects us and like we don't want this to happen to all of us. That made me super bullish, because that's what America does. That's like one of the benefits of America, is that like you can be a bank in America and know that like if I get big enough, they'll come save my ass because they don't want me to cause like ripple effects that are going to fuck up all these industries that I'm touching. And like when we kind of did that ourselves, I was super excited about that. I was like, damn, you know, like we pulled ourselves up, and like ideally we don't let ourselves get into those situations. I'm not saying like everyone should go, founders should go like take out a big ass loan against all of their governance tokens or anything like that. But I like that we're self-sufficient, you know, like we don't need a government to come in and bail us out.
Yeah. I mean, DeFi too, in general, you know, we went through a vicious market cycle and correction, and like DeFi was fine. Like many projects died. Like capitalism did its thing. It flushed out a lot of the excess, and good, you know, like it's supposed to be that. Like there was a lot of superfluous fluffiness here that needed to be removed, you know. But in the instance of Curve, even drawing back to the milady lawsuit thing, that's not that's a human nature thing. Like milady doesn't change human nature, that when your self-interests are at stake or you want to further them, you're going to do whatever you can to do that. And even if it nominally, you know, perverts your stated interest, like we don't use the legal system. Yeah, you'll use it when it helps you, though, right? Like everyone will do that. That's a human universal. That's not as disparaged from milady. That's like if you're dealing with people, you should expect that. I don't think that's cynical. I think that's just understanding people. And like to like people coordinating, you know, DeFi founders and stuff to bail out Mike from Curve. It's not a bailout. I mean, it behooves them to have the infrastructure, not, you know, fail like that and have Curve and all its ripple effects do that. So, you know, I don't know if I'd call that a bailout. Like in a way, it's a form of, it's the market intervening in a way that wants to sustain itself, because that's not like a central body kind of doing it. I don't know how I feel about that. Like if Curve has serious weaknesses, it will die eventually anyways. And they're just maybe limping it along to further their interests and whatever. It's nothing to like or dislike. It's just, you should expect that, you know? And I think, you know, if we can coordinate in this space, even though a lot of us are anonymous and stuff, like this coordination is not limited. In fact, that's like the point of blockchains. And that's why it's so beautiful. Like it's human coordination on a large scale. The first instance that's ever been done without the state or violence. I don't think there's a refutation of that. If there is, I'd like to hear, like, has there ever been human coordination on the scale of what we're building that hasn't needed a government, a state, or violence to enforce it? So like, you know, we building coordination mechanisms, you know, so we're going to be able to coordinate still and communicate and do our thing independent of infrastructure that has needed us to do it other ways previously. So anyway, yeah, I just thought something.
Yeah. Speaking about coordination, very generally, what do you think about DAOs? You know, like DAOs have kind of been created as like Moloch DAO, essentially, like the whole use case or the problem it is attempting to solve is like human coordination failure, you know, Moloch being like the sort of god of humans' inability to coordinate. Do you think that DAOs genuinely help solve this coordination problem? Do you think it's just a step in the right direction? Do you think that it's kind of like a nothing? Or where do you stand on them?
Yeah, I'm not familiar on like the subsets of DAO. Like I know Moloch DAO is a type of DAO, right? And there's some other ones. But I mean, so I'm going to speak to them in general terms, and maybe there are some that modify this. But the essence of a DAO is, and people love the word democracy. Like they hate the word politics, but they love democracy, even though it means the same thing. But like it's nominally, and you use the nice word democracy because it lets everyone feel like they have a say, which is like prima facie accepted as a good thing. Okay, but like no business coordinates itself that way. Like Chipotle does not survey people on what the next burrito flavor should be. Whoever's running GE does not be like, where do you think our next capital allocation decision should be? Like everything you know and use and that is made efficiently is made in a monarchy. Like it's made in a corporate structure with a hierarchy, with one guy calling the shots, with people beneath him doing what they do. And if they're not doing a good job, the shareholders and board remove him. Like, there's a check on that power if performance isn't good. And I don't think that wheel, and there's precedence for that kind of structure. I don't think that wheel needs to be reinvented. I think that wheel can always be instantiated in a better way digitally in crypto. I think shareholder voting should be done on chain and token voting. We have that with token voting, basically, and a lot of other things that like the corporate world has refined and TradFi has figured out. TradFi has gone through a long history. Like there are lessons to be drawn from the way they structure things. It's not like there's history there. There's a reason why these things have been done this way. I don't think all old economy methods should be just tossed out. And the most efficient structures are pretty monarchical. DAOs, if they're going to act like they're going to make all decisions, like you can't do that. You'll just have a dysfunctional organization because not everybody is suited to make capital allocation decisions. Like not everyone's suited to like make good cultural or communication decisions. Like those should have chains of command. I don't think a chain of command is a bad thing. I think it's a necessary thing. Like everything operates that way. Militaries, like businesses, like seriously everything. Everything in the private world anyway. Anything that's efficient operates that way. So the kind of platitude of DAOs that it's going to make everyone have a say, like, yeah, you can have a say insofar as every shareholder has a say. Like you can vote on some things. And if someone's not doing their fiduciary duty or is harming the project, like, enough rallying cry will have an impact on that. But kind of shareholder approach has already sort of solved that. So yeah, just insofar as like democratizing decision-making on day-to-day things or business decisions or capital allocation decisions, I don't think that should be democratized. So if the DAO wants to implement itself that way, I think you're just going to have an easy short over the long haul because it's just not going to be efficient how it does its stuff. Like I just think that's a canon of human coordination that it won't be efficient. But if you want to view DAO as like saying instantiate shareholder like rules and laws and coordination on chain and still have a hierarchical structure, then yeah, that's great. So it depends, I guess, how you implement the DAO, because it's kind of become this very broad catch-all term that,
Yeah. And when I say DAO, I do mean more. So like a Moloch DAO is like a specific. There's a code base for Moloch DAOs. You know what I mean? Like it's a framework. It's a set of smart contracts that like automate certain parts of an organizational structure. There's a rage quit function. That's something that a lot of people have skipped when they make their DAOs. Is they don't make a rage quit function, and that's a huge problem. Rage quit it was invented by Amin Soleimani. He's a friend of mine. He's going to be on the podcast in a few weeks as well. It's really important that you have a way to sort of allow people to eject themselves when they don't like the direction the spaceship is going. And most DAOs don't do this. And like I actually talked to Amin about this. I think around like ETH Denver, because ETH Denver, there were like 1,000 different DAOs at ETH Denver, and I talked to him. I was like, you kind of like invented this modern, like the current concept of DAOs almost. Like, how do you feel about the bastardization of your idea? And he was like, man, I don't give a fuck. I'm just happy people are talking about it. I was like, you know what? Like, it's not a bad way to be. But I hate democracy sometimes. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, listen, like some decisions are not. They're not best made through consensus on just people's. I made the point before. But if DAO is like a way to ferret in, like bringing the LLC on chain and having a lot more of the stuff be transparent, like that's great. Like I think that's awesome. Like I think it's even just using a different term is good. And like you're saying, how language matters. Call it a DAO because it has like this DeFi digital connotation to it that kind of explicitly means we're doing these things, like the operational mechanisms are going to be different. So expect to see this stuff on chain, maybe see treasury information in a certain way. So yeah, it's useful from that lens. But like the platitude of like democratic and autonomous, which it doesn't even like, I don't even know. Yeah, I mean, people can do some mental backflips there on how it works. It just doesn't really work. Like, it's not autonomous.
Yeah. It's like one of those things where like much like how the NFT people came. So like I have nothing against NFT people, and I don't mean to be derogatory to any NFT people who are listening.
But they suck.
But like a lot of you guys are idiots. I love NFTs. I'm all about it. Like there's nothing wrong with NFTs, but a lot of the NFT crowd kind of came in 2020, just started blowing up, and Clubhouse was a thing. People jumped on Clubhouse and then ended up funneling into Twitter and NFTs. And like when that happened, people just kind of took this term DAO and ran with it and started being like anything. It's like the way one of the things that I thought was very not milady-like of the milady founder to say was that they're like, oh, we're not really a collective. That was a marketing term. Like that was just a marketing term we use. This is a corporation and I own it. There is no collective. Right, and that's essentially kind of the problem with DAOs right now, in my opinion, is that most of them are just like, it's like DAO by name only. It's like it's an online collective, but if shit goes down to it, like there's a small group of people actually making the decisions.
Right.
Most people don't even have the bandwidth to care about the decisions being made. The people that do, 50% of them or 90% of them probably shouldn't have an opinion on what's going on.
Exactly. Yeah. And like a lot of things masquerade as democratic, and they're not. Even the US currently, I mean, it's very clearly an oligarchical structure that masquerades as a democracy. I mean, I guess not clearly. So a lot of people disagree with that.
No, I think that someone just rated it. Like some big, I can't remember who it was, but I remember reading recently that like some NGO or something labeled the US as an oligarchy. They're like, after extensive research, we decided it is not actually a democracy, it's an oligarchy.
No, it's a loose representative democracy. But, with 90% incumbent rates in Congress and whatever the average age is now, like some of these people are so openly fossils and just empty vessels for the power around them. Like they don't have opinions. Like Biden's opinion will be whatever polls well. I mean, that's most politicians, but like he is particularly empty. Like some of like the people that once they get over 80, like McConnell, like, I mean, he'll tell whatever his handlers say. Like you can just tell, like he can barely function. He's 80 something. Yeah. Even like the senator from California recently, where it's just like, where the aide was just like, just say yes. It's just like, yes. It's like, okay. Like I almost think there's some intentionality behind that to demoralize you, to like really make it clear to like the people who watch that a little bit. They're like, not a democracy. There's nothing you can do about it. Just how it is.
The empty shell thing specifically makes me just think of McConnell recently, like the practically definition of it. And people have said, like, people have called me out, like, oh, you shouldn't make fun of him. Like, it's rude to make fun of him.
He shouldn't be in office then.
Exactly. If it's rude to make fun of him, he should not be in a public position. You know, that's like
retire. Seriously, like
doesn't really make sense. Doesn't add up.
No one makes fun of old people just because they're old. Like, like doing it because you occupy a position that you have too much hubris and ego to leave. Whether or not that's even your decision, frankly, maybe it's promoted by people with ulterior motives behind the scenes. But if it's not, like, dude, you're open season. Like, you want to get mocked and made fun of for your obvious degeneration. Like, stop being in that space.
What's going on?
Yeah.
So we're coming up on like an hour and 15.
I'm good on time, by the way. So up to you.
Awesome. So like I've got two sections left. One, I want to give you a chance to kind of talk about RabbitX. I want to go into like what you're working on right now. And then the final section we have is a rapid fire question section. As you can see, I have been drinking despite. So like the whole concept, quick aside, quick tangent. The original concept for the show was that like I would go on with different like people in the space, different builders, and get drunk with them essentially. But what's happened is that all of the people I've brought on, most of them don't drink. And it's just been like essentially me, the alcoholic, like.
I got pre-workout right here, so I don't know if that counts.
Oh, nice.
Caffeine, but
it's definitely high. Like there's definitely a pre-workout high for sure.
So if they don't drink, they should have to microdose something with you. So there's at least a little symmetry there.
Yeah, man. I have a wide supply of offerings here too. So it's like if you whatever you're into, I probably have it in my fridge. You know, like you want to do shrooms, like we can do some shrooms.
What's your
Whatever you're
address?
into. Let's talk a little bit about what you're working on right now. So I know that you have. Are you the founder of RabbitX, or are you co-founder, or what's your relation there?
No. So Ming is our founder, and I came on like kind of partway through the bear market when I got wiped pretty hard. I actually did a thread on this about how I thought I was retired and good to go, and then that was a low interest rate phenomenon, and I kind of was like, all right, well, yeah, like I'm not totally wiped. I can be picky still, but let's see what's in the DeFi space, and I found what was at the time was Strips Finance, which is what we originally were, which is an interest rate swap product that struggled kind of to find product market fit. I think the space is a little too nascent still for interest rate swaps. And we have perpetual interest rate swaps. So we pivoted to perps because that clearly has a strong market in this space. And we started building that out. And my role has evolved over time. Like I initially was, strategy, communication, writing, community, very broad. Like I said, really generalist. My background's very generalist too. And then when we checked down Strips and started building Rabbit, I did a lot of research into other brokers and sexes and kind of their order book structure and anything that basically needed to get done along those lines. I'm not technical, so like I can't code or anything. So like anything, I'm one of like two or three non-technical people at the whole, all of Rabbit. And then once we went on to mainnet, then I, was like, all right, well, how do we get noticed? And then I started building up, the BackTheBunny account. So I'm like, well, I'm just going to blog and speak publicly, and I hope that's interesting. And if it does, like, it's beautifully aligned incentives because it gets Rabbit visibility and gets me too. But it's a great like kind of way to approach it. So I'm kind of all over the place. I'm whatever we need to get done. Right now, it's mostly you could say communication and spokesmanship and community stuff, strategy still, things like that. We discuss listings and what have you together. But yeah, we're a great team, pretty flat, and it's been a pleasure being around here, being a Rabbit.
Flat, almost like a DAO.
Like at the end of the day, Ming still ultimately calls the shots, right? But like we definitely have dialogues that are where everyone's taken very seriously that gets factored in. So it's not like a dictatorship that way, right? But at the end of the day, it's one person making a technical decision, I'm making content decision, right? So it's like, but we discuss it though too. So it's a nice blend. You can do that with small teams, I guess, right?
Yeah. What's your pitch for Rabbit? I guess like not your pitch exactly, but how do you see RabbitX as better than the other, perp markets out there? Like, what do you think that you guys do really well?
I mean, just giving a background on us, we're gasless trading. We're an order book liquidity model. Offer up to 20 times leverage on right now 8 different markets, soon to be 10. We're going to list some new ones here soon. Our model is very similar to DYDX's for those that are familiar with like how perps are facilitated. We're an off-chain order book. We're working to also do the same thing they're doing where you want to bring the order book on chain, namely the sequencing on chain. I think that's the most important part is the transparency of how orders are being sent to know you're not getting front run or being mev'd. So we're doing that. We have goals. We have minds for an app chain as well, like they do. So like beyond that though, you're like, all right, so why us? And we've grown pretty substantially. Like we're one of the top perp dexes by volume now. We did like 50, 60 mil like most of last week daily.
Damn.
And like it's been a really nice organic uptrend. Like we're not running an airdrop campaign to pay people to trade us. In fact, we go out of our way to not be that, like to bring in mercenaries who just give you a sugar high and dump your token because they just want to extract value than we. So we've been very intentional, like not paying people to use us because it's wasteful. It doesn't get you anywhere. So the volume is very sincere. Like we're not, playing games with that. If we were playing games, we could make it way higher. Like why play games with such a small number?
That's honestly, I didn't realize you guys didn't have like a token or something that you were doing incentives with. Your volume is a lot more impressive knowing that you don't have incentive. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, we had an initial airdrop campaign several months ago and it was small. Like people actually got kind of upset when we doled it out. We're like, we're not paying you to trade on us. We've been very transparent about that. I did a thread called getting the shareholders you deserve and token holders too, where it's like you get if you are appealing to pumps and near-term stuff, you get the shareholders you deserve from that. You get shareholders that only want that. If you're like Buffett, who's gone out of his way to not attract day traders, never split his stock, it's like, $300,000, whatever Berkshire is, you get long-term investors. Like you get the investors around you that you deserve based off what you communicate. And I wrote a thread on that too, being like, there's a reason for this. So the first airdrop was small, and it was very, I would say afterwards, like kind of made mercenaries realize like, wow, they're not kidding. Like they're not just going to pay you money for watch trading. And we had a second campaign that concluded about 3 weeks ago, late last month. And like the volume has only gone up. Like it's like not affected by it at all. So
That's
like
awesome.
we're trying to really like reward when we give an airdrop or give something that's like organic usage. We actually have a very holistic way of measuring that with like open interest, P&L. The time positions are open, like the kind of stuff. It's very hard to game. Like if you're a genuine trader, like you'll meet those metrics easily. If you're not, we'll catch it. We're not going to give you anything. So yeah, like we have some incentives we've given out previously, and we haven't even given out the second airdrop yet. It's bigger, but it's not like insane, but it's definitely bigger. So yeah, just to clarify that, like we're not paying for this. Like it is, as far as I know and what I've seen, like I haven't seen any games here of us watch trading or bringing on stuff like that. So
is that alpha? Do you have any alpha? Can you boost my views?
I mean, like we're very much, and kind of circle back to your like why rabbit. I actually didn't fully answer that. Also, we're the cheapest DEX, like objectively so in DeFi, like maker and taker fees. Like you can fact check that in our docs. Like we really are. And even in CeFi too, like you could say we're actually cheaper than Binance. They have lower taker fees on some tiers, but we have no maker fees and they do. So depending on how you want to measure that, we're even cheaper than them. But back to like your alpha point, like if you're buying RBX, like you're like really, we're here for the long term. Like we want to be a derivatives, like one of the marquee derivatives exchanges, like not even just in DeFi, like period. We're starting in DeFi because we think the economic model is superior. We believe in the space and what's been built here. But like, we have plans for much more than just doing well next bull cycle, or something like that. So like, it's a very long-term minded framework that we approach things.
See that fly? Sorry.
No, actually,
you're just landing on my face.
But we're the way we're structuring things too is like very, very, very trader first and user first, which I know kind of also sounds like a platitude, but we go out of our way to like look at every single step in the journey and remove as much friction out of that as possible. Our team, we're a team of traders, former TradFi people, DeFi users. So like we inject ourselves into that, like are hypersensitive to that. And we want it to feel like you're using a real broker, like you're not making a trade-off. There shouldn't be any trade-off for like using DeFi. It should just be a superior way to transact, and it shouldn't be this clunky thing. We're as long-term minded. We're well-funded. We're here for the long run. We have pretty great success so far. We've only been on mainnet since April.
And you're on Starknet?
Yeah. You make the deposit on ETH layer 1, and we use Starknet for messaging, for the bridging from the order book off-chain. So like Starknet is used, but you don't interact with it directly. So you can still use an EVM wallet for Rabbit. You don't need to download a
cool
wallet. Yeah, you can just do it from ETH. Layer 1 is where you make deposits, and then you make the trading. You trade through our UI, and it's totally gas-free trading. It's a benefit of an off-chain order book, right? And yeah, I guess I think that sums up a lot of like our mentality, which I think is the thing to like really believe in us here, because we want to attract people who, the shareholders we deserve, people who want to see real infrastructure be built and want a genuine product that's like superior in every way and even the nuances. So, we're the cheapest. I don't think that's the reason to use us though. Like just being low cost is not a good reason, but I think we are objectively the fastest too. We actually measured some of this too in like response times. We're very fast, very cheap, and we're just a joy to use. And we're only going to get better with like little things we put in with like market data, like market info news updates, like chart trading. We have TradingView integrated in there. We're going to just only add more and more. It's just a great platform. And I encourage you to try it out if you're a perps trader. I don't think you'd be disappointed.
I'm a very bad perps trader personally, but I used to do a lot of perps trading. Now I've cut myself off. But a lot of my friends, that's like their bread and butter. That's how they make their living, just trading perps. It's an exciting lifestyle, but I am now too old.
Yeah. Too broke.
Yeah, my first the reason I started working in crypto is because of perps. Is because I took $2,500 when I discovered crypto in like 2016, and I'm trying to decide how much I should incriminate myself here. 2016, I basically load up $2,500 into Bitfinex and have no idea what I'm doing at all, but it's the middle of a bull market. I don't even know what a bull market is at this time. This just happens to be when I stumbled into crypto and decided to start trading perps. So everything I do wins for maybe like 2 weeks. For 2 weeks straight, I do not make a losing trade.
Wow.
I'm just killing it.
All
but
long,
I was
right? These are all
Yeah,
longs, I
all
imagine.
long,
Okay.
all long. And all I was doing, my strategy at the time was literally find the thing that's like down the most, and everything's going up right now, so it's gonna go up.
Right,
And
right.
it worked for 2 weeks. As like I'm like I think I was 21, 22. I was young and stupid,
Right,
but I
right.
just keep doing this, and I turned 2,500 into 50 grand in 2 weeks, and then I get liquidated for 50 grand on one trade on
Wow.
like December 24th. And I wake up the next morning for Christmas. My whole family's over at my house. I was just liquidated for $50,000 on Christmas morning.
Wow.
And I'm just like opening my presents, like I feel nothing anymore.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
after that, I like, I licked my wounds from that for like a week or so. And then I was like, well, like I still believe in the tech, like I'm still very bullish in the tech. And I think that this is the future, but I'm broke and I have no more money and I have no way to invest in it.
Right.
How do I see upside from this industry? And I was like, I'm just going to work. I'm going to find ways to provide value and I'm going to work. So I went on CoinMarketCap. There was no CoinGecko at the time.
Oh, wow.
And I went to like page 6 or 7. So
How
we'd
long
be
ago
out
was
of it.
this?
This is 2016.
Okay.
Yeah. I go to like CoinGecko might have been around, but I didn't know about it at the time. I go to page like 6 or 7 on CoinMarketCap. So we're at like top 1,000 because I knew the top 100 coins wouldn't accept me. And I just start joining every single Discord for every coin past top 1,000, which there was only like 300. I think there were maybe like 1,300 coins at the time total. I have no idea how many now, probably like 10 grand, 10K or more. And I just would pop in these Discords and be like, hi, my name's Reza. I'm good at this, this, and this. I would love to work for you. Let me know. And like eventually one coin was like, sure, what do you make in a year? And I lied. I made nothing in a year. I was unemployed and broke. And I was like, I make 120K a year. And they're like, okay, what's your wallet? And they sent me 120 grand. So
Wow.
I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life.
Dude, wow.
And
Peak bull market. This was 2016?
I think it was 2016, 2017.
Oh, I guess that was right before the crash, because 2017 is when there was a big crash. So that was peak bull
Yeah,
vibes too. Yeah, man. That's
it was
crazy.
nuts.
I heard stories like that too, of just people getting just paid like insane sums of money for like research content. Like you're just throwing money around. Like it's just obvious mania kind of environment. So hey, get it while it's good, like that's you gotta
I think
dance
I
while
cashed out maybe 30 grand worth of it because I got paid in the shit coin.
Yeah.
And like because I was working on this is the first time I had gotten like liquid equity in anything, because like that's for me as someone who started his professional career trying to launch business after business and like saw varying success. Like some things I launched like did pretty well, some things didn't do well at all, but I got very desensitized to the idea of getting equity. I was like, what is it? Like
right.
like I don't care about your equity, I don't want this equity. Like 99% of these guys are going to fail. I don't want it. So when I got into crypto and was given liquid equity, it was like a huge unlock in my brain. I was like, oh shit. But the problem was I was so jaded that I was like, my individual work will single-handedly propel this coin upwards. and I just like held, because at the time, again, like I didn't even know what a bull and bear market was, like I was just like, I am not a TradFi guy. Like the only like financial education I have is self-education that I gave to myself as I learned about like how to trade. And like now I'm probably more educated than like the majority of, average Americans as far as like the American financial system goes. But like, it's been a long process. I was a complete idiot.
Yeah. The best lessons are experienced, right? Like, you just have to go through it. I got wiped very hard too for much more than 50K. That was a slow bleed though, over like months. But yeah, you learn new lessons. You learn what wealth was real and what was ephemeral and part of, being a bull market genius. And it's like, I love the saying too, like in bear markets, stocks return to their rightful owners. Like it's just so poetically true. And in bear markets, crypto does too, or crypto goes to its rightful value, which is often zero. But, going to your rightful owner is really like, that's like some Darwinian, just deep canonical truth to me, where it's like, that didn't belong to you. Like you got liquidated and sent to someone else who was the rightful owner. So that's the way I view it.
Yeah. Let's dive into the rapid fire section here. And if you want to pass, just say pass. Most significant win in crypto.
I know you're asking this from like a financial lens, but I don't have one that blew. I'm an investor kind of by nature. So I don't have like one like crazy trade where I made 10,000%. I think my most significant win, frankly, is finding Rabbit and being brought into this after getting licked very hard and losing all that money, like getting here and in this space and it motivating me to, be in this industry and do the writing and work I do and like be on a podcast like this. I've been on like 10 or so podcasts in the last like, 4-ish months or something. That's so much more rewarding to me than what I was, previously. So I'm grateful for that actually. So I'm going to give you kind of a poetic, weird answer and say finding Rabbit and getting liquidated was sort of my biggest win and losing all that money I had.
It's the most wholesome thing I've heard from a milady before. I love it. Very wholesome. Yeah. Best conference you've been to?
I haven't been to many. Actually, this year is the first year I've ever done any. Consensus Permissions, whichever Austin was at the start of the year. I think it was Consensus. And then I went to a Starknet event a couple weeks ago, and then I did a talk in Austin as well. The Starknet event was in San Francisco. So really my only conference experience is Consensus, frankly. So I don't have much to draw from there. I'm going to do more. I'm definitely planning on doing more. So
you got to come to ETH Denver. People who love the big events, they'll be like, "Oh, ETH Denver's a shit show. Fuck ETH Denver." But like, ETH Denver's the best in my opinion. Like, it's definitely a little messy, but it's the only place where all the other events I go to, except for the Decrypt events, all the Decrypt events are the best events I've ever been to, and everyone should go to Camp Decrypt. But all the events I've been to are kind of corporate, and they don't really like mirror the community. I don't see the people that I interact with at like a lot of the events, but when I go to ETH Denver, it's very much like these are the people I'm talking to on Twitter. These are the people who are actually building stuff. Right. So yeah, you gotta make your way out there.
So I hear, yeah, I'd love to go there. I'll be doing more of them too. Like this year was my first taste of them, and they've been a great time. Like really cool connections, meeting more of my people. So no, for sure.
What was your favorite song of the summer?
I don't do contemporary music, I guess. Like I'm not trying to be edgy. Like I don't know any modern pop
it's whatever you're listening to.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I've made a little.
It's a podcast. Like what is in your headphones when you're at the gym? Is a better question.
Yeah, podcasts usually. There's a couple that I guess I go to. I'm subscribed to like 60 of them, but I don't listen to every single episode. Like I go through the ones where I think there's value. Or more often, I've been looking up one guy's name who I dive into a lot and just listen to everything that he's done. So Forward Guidance, which is a Blockworks one, I like a lot. The Network State, which is an Urbit themed one, I really enjoyed too. I was on that one actually recently.
Were you a fan of it before you went on it, or did you become a fan of it like
fan before? I was a fan before, so it was really cool. I was like, oh shit, yeah, I'd love to go on. I listened to this already. Yeah, they're very like they're broad. Yeah, I won't get into them. It's all good. So I'm trying to think any others. Like I can't think of any others on the top of my head. But yeah, I mean, they're all crypto, economic, technology focused. I don't listen to like Today in the News type stuff. I mean, at all. Like, it's all like, it's kind of the stuff like how I write. Like, almost everything I put out there is like still relevant 6 months, a year later. Like, almost nothing if you go to like my highlights tab and look at stuff, like it's all relevant still. So I'm a very much like evergreen kind of guy where I like care about substantive things I can use again or that will be useful, forever or for a long time. So I try to find podcasts that are like that too. So I don't like news stuff or ephemeral things that I wouldn't care to listen to a month from now, most of the time. And then like from a music standpoint, when I listen to that, I've been listening to music a little bit more. For a while, I was like pure podcast, mostly like techno, kind of dark techno.
Like really bassy stuff. Is that like what's dark techno?
Kind of bassy, yeah. Like just not super up tempo, like poppy. I suppose. I'm gonna struggle to articulate
the opposite of like Summer House, kind of.
Maybe I can't quite picture that. Is that a song?
Summer House is that like tropical, like dun, 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 like lots of horns and like so it's like the opposite of. I could see dark techno being the opposite of Summer House. That would make sense in my head.
Yeah. Like hard to describe, but like mostly stuff without lyrics. I've been weirdly gravitating towards a lot over the last handful of years. I feel like it helps. I feel like I'm more prone to like thinking. When I do that, I'll loop something with no lyrics, and it's like more conducive to like just my mind wandering or something on like walks. So blend a podcast in that.
I think that music without lyrics is better for like exactly what you said. Like it's not putting thoughts into your mind. It's just it's kind of just like stimulation for your mind, and you have your own thoughts like around it, which is mainly existential crises. But hey,
yeah, no, I mean, almost most of my thoughts and ideas. Probably most is fair. Like of like stuff I write about and think about happens on walks and like with music looping like that. So yeah, passive movement. Yeah, that like lets you think is very useful for that. That's why shower thoughts are a thing. Like if you're moving just enough, but it doesn't occupy like your executive function, because you don't need to focus on walking when you walk, but it's the movement is stimulating in a way. And like showering, like it's kind of the same thing. You're moving, but you're not like have to think about it. It's passive. Like it's more conducive to thoughtfulness and ideas, and that's why the shower thoughts meme is a thing.
It's something I'm working on right now that I feel like I'm still trying to figure out is how to get people into that sort of like that zone where they're answering my questions, but it's almost like they're like if you're driving and answering my questions, where like you're a little bit distracted and like you're off guard and you're answering a little more honestly, like as if you were like in the shower or like on a walk or driving. Like it's something I'm trying to perfect, but you were awesome. You did very good. Don't feel like you were guarded. There's a lot of honest questions, a lot of honest answers.
Yeah, why
not? What is your muscle split? What is your current workout plan?
I mean, I've been following the same routine for God knows how long. I used to compete like in bodybuilding back in the day, like shows and everything. And I still maintain that schedule. Like I don't compete anymore. Like I never actually really enjoyed that much. I more just like the lifting of it and stuff. And that was justification for it. Like, why are you big? Well, I compete. Like, I just don't care. I just like it. But I just do like simple.
Who asked you, why are you big?
Well, no, I guess no. Maybe that was a self-justification. Like when I was younger, I was a little bit bigger and more OCD about it. And I think that's more the thing where I felt maybe I had to justify it. It's like, why is it dominating my life so much? And it doesn't dominate my life anymore. Like I'm much more late. You just realize all that neuroticism stuff, OCD is not necessary. I just, I'm at the gym like 6-7 days a week, but I walk there and back too. It's just, you don't need to do 6 or 7 days. Like I do it because I like it. Some days I don't lift. I'll maybe just stretch or just do calves or something. But like, back, chest, arms, delts, legs, all get their own day. And it's just
like heavy. The Arnold split kind of like you're doing a single muscle every day.
Essentially. Yeah. I don't like combining like backs and bi or stuff like that. I feel you shortchange your biceps almost always when you do that, or like chest and like synergistic muscles, chest and triceps. And then there's all like heavy compound free weight stuff for like 80% of it. I'm very selective on machines. Like I just, OG kind of free weight stuff. And that's it. Like you don't need to get fancy. Like the basics, like, they come in clutch for you, and been following that kind of split for forever. I've been the same weight and size for quite a while now. I've just been maintaining forever. So not trying to get bigger, just trying to maintain and keep doing it,
How much do you weigh? These aren't written down questions, by the way. I'm freestyling now.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm 6 foot and 235 thereabouts.
God damn. You're gigantic. You could eat me. That's like I'm like 170 pounds, 5'11".
Live. Very, very, very quick, right?
Yeah, fast.
Just run circles.
I'm not small, I'm agile.
There you go.
All right, man. Thank you so much for coming on. I had a great time talking to you. Hope to have you on again sometime. This was,
I'd love to.
Super enlightening.
This is fun. Yeah, it's just sentiments of fun.
You add this to your list of favorite podcasts that you're subscribed to.
Yeah, no, dude. If it's having combos like this, this sounds great. Like, for sure, I absolutely will put you guys in the lineup.
Oh, thank you. I forgot to ask our last guest our final question, so I'm glad you reminded me. The final question, and this isn't rapid fire. You can take as long as you want to answer it, but do you feel successful?
No, not really. That's not to say I feel unsuccessful, though. Like, I just don't feel like particularly. I mean, I don't know. I have kind of a depressive temperament on that, so I don't know if I'm definitely not a good judge on that. Most people probably aren't. Like, they'll probably skew one way or the other, like too egotistical or too deferential. I'm probably on the side of like two on that. But yeah, I don't know. I feel fine though. Like, I don't feel like I'm behind the ball or anything, but like I don't feel not bragging about it, I suppose.
Yeah. So the fun fact, the only person who said yes was Shkreli.
Of course. Dude, that's so unsurprising. Oh my God. I mean, he was pretty successful, so that's fair. I mean, he's also had his share of unsuccesses, but on that though, I think that's a fair thing to say. So.
Out of the 5 people so far, he's the only one who's like, yeah, I am.
Yeah. And, maybe there's something to that you need to there's a great Jordan quote. It's like, to do great things, you need to believe that you can. So it's almost to say you need to have overconfidence. Like, you actually need to have some kind of unjustified belief in yourself to even be able to do those things. Like 98% of startups fail. Like yours, why are you even trying? Like, you almost have an unreasonable belief that you will succeed, and that wills it to existence if you have the chance to do it. So there's probably something to be said for that he thinks that way, because you just kind of act and, you dress for the job you want, not the job you have, kind of thing, and you just kind of will it into existence that way, because no one's going to just hand it to you. So probably some good mentality to draw from being like that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Dimitri. This was awesome.